Good afternoon, everyone. Just over 20 years ago, parish and town councils were going to be abolished. Or so the story goes. A government minister of the day reportedly made this suggestion. It was neither serious nor government policy. And as we know, it never happened. In fact, the opposite was true. At precisely 21 years ago yesterday, the headline in the Local Government Chronicle read, "Rural White Paper, Towns and Parishes Scoop Major Policy Role." Published late in November 2000, the government's Rural White Paper intended to be a blueprint for the rejuvenation of the countryside. But just as important was the recognition of the important role parish and town councils, our most local councils, play in communities and in the provision of local services. So why do I mention this touchstone in our sector's shared history? Because the implied irrelevance of local councils and what you and I do to make things better for our communities served as a clarion call, a call to wake up, and a call to stand up. Thankfully, the sector did stand up, pulling together, working together, to make the case that our first tier of local government was instead to be valued, supported and strengthened. I think you'll agree our sector looks very different now to the one at the start of the millennium. That's why, having had the privilege to be the chair of NALC for the last 5 years, I'm grateful to my predecessors and everyone else who has played their part over the years in championing local councils and parish power. But I'm particularly grateful for everything that you have done over the last challenging 18 months. Clerks, council staff, councillors, volunteers, partner organisations, you are at the forefront of the response to the crisis, never more needed, keeping our communities running. Councils, county associations, NALC and the Society of Local Clerks all stood together to support each other and our communities because, put simply, we all want the same thing. We're all passionate about making a difference, about making life better for our communities, and about making a change. We are the voice for our communities. We are truly local, and we deliver the things that our communities need, want, and deserve. There's no end game, no finishing line, just an eternal mission. A mission to continue to make a difference, to adapt to change, and to continue to make life better for our communities. And that's why it's been such a great privilege to have been chair over the last 5 years and to lead our organisation in this mission. And as I come to the end of my term of office and reflect on recent years, one phrase springs to mind more than any other. Together we stand. I've never been more certain that standing together and working together will continue to be the key for our success, helping us get through the challenges we're sure to face, as well as unlocking new opportunities. As I said in my opening remarks earlier today, today's conference is my last as NALC's chair. So I'd like to share with you a few reflections on the last few years, set out some of the challenges ahead, and offer some thoughts on what I think needs to happen to put local councils at the heart of future communities. When I was elected as chair of NALC by my peers 5 years ago, I became the first female chair of NALC in its long history since forming in 1947. I was, of course, immensely proud to become NALC's chair, although not particularly proud to be the first ever female chair. I'm certain that I won't be, and we will be failing in our quest for more diversity in the sector if not. But I need your help. If you have great female councillors on your councils, including your chairs or mayors, ask them to stand. Ask them to get involved in your county association and also in NALC. If you know someone who would make a great councillor, ask them to stand. Talent spot. This is the first of my pleas to you today. For me, there's a golden thread running all the way through from my roots, being active in my community, to my involvement with my county association, and then to NALC and beyond, one which allows me to draw on these experiences. I first stood for election as an independent parish councillor in Worcestershire because I believed that I could use my career experience and love of my local area to make a change within my community. I then stood for the County Association and NALC because I wanted to try and make a bigger change across the country and at national level. And I still get those goosebump moments when something happens that reminds me of my community roots and reminds me why what we do as the first tier of local government is so brilliant. And I'm sure you have those goosebump moments too. Those seemingly little things that happen that make a great difference to local people. As an advocate at the national level of what you all do, I've always endeavoured to be as engaging with the sector as possible, as visible as possible, and as honest as possible. I hope you've seen that through NALC's regular communications, including our weekly bulletin and my own open letters. A key to being NALC chair has been playing an instrumental role in the sector's lobbying. I'm really proud that by working together, we've been able to deliver a number of notable successes in recent years, such as the multi-year deal on council tax referendum principles. It's absolutely right that local councils, as local leaders, should be engaging with their communities over investing their money in tackling local priorities. But it's also absolutely right that local councils should have the freedom to increase the precept to deliver on those local priorities. As you all know, it was the Localism Act which brought in the power for the Secretary of State to set council tax referendum principles. And I'm pleased that together we persuaded successive ministers they should not be extended to our sector. And of course, we will continue to make this case. The Localism Act also abolished the Audit Commission, but by working together with the SLCC, we set up the sector-led body, SAAA, to procure audit, saving councils money in having to do it themselves. Or take GDPR, where our lobbying on the Data Protection Act removed the proposed costly requirement for councils to have a data protection officer, again saving councils money. And then there's our long-standing campaign to end the toilet tax, once again saving councils money. We must now use this as a springboard to make the case for exempting other communities and cultural assets in the future. I hope it goes without saying that an effective standards regime underpins an effective, well-functioning democracy. We were successful in influencing the Committee on Standards in Life during the inquiry on local government ethical standards, as we heard earlier this afternoon, particularly on the need to strengthen the regime, including through the introduction of sanctions, a measure NALC has consistently argued for. But like you, and I recognise the strength of feeling on this issue, I remain deeply disappointed that the government has not yet responded to the committee's report. This is despite our collective and continuing lobbying of ministers and officials on these issues. And again, we are continuing to press this vital issue as part of our work on civility and respect. I'm also immensely proud to have encouraged our councils to be ambitious and go beyond their more traditional role and help tackle some of the big challenges facing our communities, such as improving health and well-being and tackling the climate and ecological emergency, or using neighbourhood planning and master plans to shape development and housing, and the important part that we play in supporting young people. And I was thrilled to launch our webpage and case studies on the NALC website earlier this week. So do please check that out. Then there was seeing our report with the Alzheimer's Society on building dementia-friendly communities being presented to the Prime Minister in the garden of Downing Street. That was another of those goosebump moments. Taking your work in town and village halls to Whitehall. I've also been particularly keen to recognise and celebrate your fantastic work, including through our Star Council Awards, and I'd like to congratulate again all of this year's winners. But lastly, hosting a royal visit to our own annual conference in Milton Keynes just 2 years ago, that was another obvious highlight as NALC's chair. It was a real pleasure to show the Princess Royal round our event through the day, to introduce her to some of you who are here today, to shine a spotlight on the fantastic work of our sector, and hear her pay a tribute to you all. The other big part of my role is leadership of the organisation, and as I said earlier, I am lucky that my predecessors had built solid foundations and a great team at all levels. This provided a strong basis for a review of our strategic direction, which included our previous big conversation on the future of the sector, leading to a new focus on member services, with a new team, enhanced services and new partnerships at its very heart. Also, over the last 5 years, I've worked really hard to strengthen the relationships with and between our county associations, who, alongside the SLCC, play such a vital role in supporting us all. As you'd expect, over the last 18 months, online meetings has helped us overcome our geographical challenges and bring us closer together, with much more frequent and regular meetings between NALC and county officer staff. So, to conclude, I want to turn to the future and some of the issues and challenges that I believe our sector will be facing. So, for our sector to continue to thrive, we must stand together, or I fear that divided we will fall. Firstly, on lobbying, and I don't just mean by the chair of NALC in Westminster and in Parliament. I mean by all of us, all of the time, and with MPs in particular. You are all fundamental to our lobbying efforts, and your engagement with your MPs is vital. Government ministers listen to their fellow MPs. They listen about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So tell them about the fantastic work you're doing. Invite them to your events. See how you can help them. But make sure they know all about the issues that you face, and make sure they take them up on your behalf. Because we need to stand together and lobby together to try to get the change that we want to see. While some things are out of our control, that's the nature of government and the world we live in, we do need to try and influence as much as we can. So I think the second challenge is planning and local government reform. Our councils as placemakers have an obvious part to play as the democratic voice of local people. But we also have a responsibility for current and future generations to build sustainable communities. That's why we've been arguing that communities must continue to be at the heart of the planning system and central to the plan-making process, and in particular through neighbourhood planning. I'm in no doubt that neighbourhood planning is one of the reasons our sector continues to be relevant, with over 1,000 plans in place and 1 million votes cast in referenda. By far the most successful of the measures brought in by the Localism Act. But we must keep working together to ensure neighbourhood plans are strengthened and better protected. And I'm encouraged to, as I think actually the government gets that. But turning to local government reform, to me this includes levelling up and devolution. I don't think restructuring will go away, nor will changes to accountability regimes such as audit. But I ask this: what do we want from reform? And are we prepared to change to get what we want? Is reform for everyone else, but not us? The last couple of months has finally seen the levelling up agenda starting to take more shape, and the government articulating what this means. Here's how the new Levelling Up Minister, Neil O'Brien MP, describes it: empowering local leaders and empowering communities, growing the private sector and boosting living standards, particularly where they're lower, spreading opportunity and improving public services, particularly where they're lacking, and restoring local pride. I'm absolutely in no doubt that local councils have a huge part to play in levelling up and rebuilding our communities. By working together with sector, the government has a fantastic opportunity to help local councils do more. To help local councils provide the local leadership needed to level up communities and ensure social and economic recovery from the pandemic. So what do I mean by this? Levelling up local democracy by creating local councils across England. Fair and secure funding, including direct access to grant funding. Strengthening local leadership and accountability. Investing in increasing capacity and capability, including sharing good practice. To really help us unlock our potential, we will need support, which is my third issue. We need investment and support to build our capacity and capability, not just investment from government, but investment from other sources, particularly from ourselves. We must invest in ourselves, training and development, for example. We already have many self-improvement initiatives in existence as a baseline from which to build, yet which lack investment, including from government. We must invest in our partners, building relationships and links at all levels, not just with our MPs, which I really can't emphasise enough, but also with our principal councils, many of whom recognise our value and want to work closer together. Yet many do not, as I experienced recently, and who question our legitimacy and our capability. And I urge you to recognise and rise to this challenge. And we must invest in our communities. Be confident with our use of the precept and make the best of our sense of neighbourliness. Keep people and place at our heart. Now, fourthly, I think underpinning all of this is good governance. Civility and respect should be at the heart of public life, and good governance is fundamental to ensuring an effective and well-functioning democracy at all levels. In June last year, NALC and other stakeholders, including the SLCC, published a joint statement committing to promote civility in public life. A project working group has been established to drive this forward, and both NALC and the SLCC have committed investment for this project of £100,000 over the next 2 years, and we're working hard to secure further investment too. I mentioned earlier that while we were successful in influencing the Committee on Standards in Public Life report and their recommendations, I'm hugely frustrated with the lack of response from the government, and this must stay at the top of our agenda. But I ask that we take this forward in the same civil and respectful way we want to become the norm in our sector. I'm equally frustrated at the government's lack of action on remote meetings, especially given the continuing impact of COVID, now heightened with this new variant. Throw in the severe weather in many parts of the country, and it's hard to see why the government is so apparently resistant to enabling this flexibility. My concluding challenge, one I said for all of us, is about delivering our shared vision for the sector, where local councils across the country will be at the centre of community effort, the natural focus of a range of public activity and service delivery, where local councils are given a democratic voice to communities in the deliberations of other agencies and working in partnership with them, and where vibrant, dynamic and effective local councils will help communities to help themselves, building strength and resilience and improving the quality of life of residents. I believe it is vital we stand together to meet all of these challenges, for I fear that if not divided, we will fall. Again, risking flippant calls for our abolition. While I'm at the end of my journey as NALC chair, I want to extend my sincere congratulations to Councillor Keith Stevens, who begins his term next week when he takes over. I'm absolutely thrilled to have been appointed as a Vice President and to be able to continue to serve you all and support Keith in any way I can. I know he'll do a fantastic job, and I ask you all to support him, just as you have supported me. So, let's be ambitious. Let's all get new people involved. Let's all invest in ourselves, and let's be confident about the future. Because together we stand, and united we will thrive. Thank you. I'm just having a little look at my list of questions here to see, why don't more councils seize the opportunity provided by the general power of competence? Should they? Yes, certainly. One other thing that we're also pushing government for is to extend the general power of competence, to make it available to a wider range of councils, so that more councils are actually able to take advantage of it. I'm just having another little look down here. I don't think anybody wants to ask me any questions. No? Does that mean I'm let off early? I will say one thing that is completely unscripted, if I may, which is I really have thoroughly enjoyed my term as your chair and chair of NALC. It's been a fantastic journey that I think I've shared with the sector, and I know after next week I'm actually going to miss it a bit. But thank you all very much for listening to me today. Thank you. Oh, I've got a last question. Brilliant. What can be done to stop unitary authorities masking deprivation and ensure our areas of deprivation get the support they need? I'm not quite sure I can answer that. One observation I'll make, though, is that I do sometimes feel that when you're looking at areas of deprivation, they're defined too broadly. Because I know within my own ward here, I've got a mixture of some of the most affluent areas in the district and also one of the poorest areas. And because that poor area is so small, it falls below all the deprivation radar. I think, to me, I'd like to see the whole of England parished, especially where unitary authorities are formed. And I think that where we're parished, we can support those smaller areas of deprivation. I think we can have a huge impact there. Housing needs assessment have changed over the past few years. Do you feel it now meets housing needs in your area? I think the jury's still out on that. I think every time I look at the numbers that the government give to my area, they change. They go up and they go down. I think the other impact on housing needs is where you have a duty to cooperate with a neighbouring authority. I know one thing for sure, and that's we do need more houses, but we do also need more houses of the right type. We need sustainable houses. We need the right infrastructure in place to support them. And I'd like to think that's changed, but yeah, I doubt they'll ever get it completely right. Lord Evans' point about the difficulties that younger working age people and parents with young children may struggle to find the time available to participate as councillors. Aside from the pandemic, is there also a diversity case for amending the Local Government Act 72 to make remote meetings lawful? Yes, definitely. And that's certainly some rationale that I've been pushing with my diversity hat on. I mean, we've got the evidence that more people were able to attend our meetings when they happened remotely. So, and I'm sure that when the government went out to consultation, I know I put that in as a reason to continue with remote meetings, and I'm sure many others of you did as well. So yes. I think that's it at the moment for questions. Yeah, anybody else got any? This is your last chance to ask me, because next week I will be sailing into the sunset. No, I really do think that's it. No more questions. Okay. As a very new councillor who became one because I'm so concerned particularly about the unpredictability of the impact of climate change on communities, I will miss your letters. So, thank you. Been able to learn, so being able to. One thing that I can absolutely assure you is that Keith will pick up the mantle, and you will continue to get the letters. We will continue to be absolutely supportive of all the work that we're doing on climate change. So I know Keith will keep that going. And then, what is the most succinct way you can summarise the roles of town and parish councils to a lay person? I think two things. We can provide the icing on the cake. Your principal authorities, they do the things they have to do to make life good and to make life good for you. We can do the things that make life better for you. Every penny that we collect from you is spent back in our community, and we do the things that you want and you need. And I think that is how I'd summarise it. I think that probably concludes my bit. Thank you.